Gracias. Thank you so much for choosing our show to come be with us. There's so many incredible selections with the Destinos Festival this year. So muchas gracias por su tiempo y su participación. I oftentimes have people ask me, how did you become a bilingual storyteller? And it wasn't a decision that I made. No, it was something that happened. A long time ago, I was a senior, the only Latina in my theater program, all 4 years. And I was 2 months out to graduation, and I was staring at that white ceiling in my dorm room, thinking, oh God, what did I do, what did I do, what did I do? Please, 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 por favor, Diosito, please, 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 please don't let me be broke forever living in Mami and Papi's basement. You know, when you're an immigrant's kid, you pick things like engineering.
Yeah.
You pick like being a doctor. You know, be a scientist, be a lawyer, even be a nurse. Anything that is a good blue-collar job that'll get you a good paycheck. And I picked teatro. So I was praying that prayer, come on God, please, 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 come on, I love this work. Please, I'd be a terrible server at a restaurant. I'd probably drop the food on people's laps, and I would be awful in someone's office as an assistant, olvídate. Staring at 4 walls and standing at a copy machine all day. Please, please, could you give me a job that would pay me real bucks as a performer? I really, 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 really want to have the flexibility of, like getting to know the city of Chicago and being around and not being stuck inside of 4 walls. And I would really love to perform regularly. And I'd love to work with kids, so that I had a double major in creative drama so that I could work with littles, and had done the curriculum so that I could be in lesson plan mode and work at the school. So hop from school to school. And if you could make sure that there's health insurance, that would be great. And enough money to get a car note, because I really want a car. I prayed this ridiculous prayer. And about a year later, almost to the day, casi la fecha, I landed the job as the Cole McCormick Story Bus Educator. My job was to drive a 39-foot vehicle that was bigger than a city bus but smaller than a semi-truck to schools all over Chicagoland area and tell children the story of the 3 little pigs, the little red hen, and the gingerbread man. And then I would bring them into my bus, which was not a Winnebago home, but was actually a museum on wheels, and we'd build the stick house together, and we'd build the brick house together. And I did this incredible literacy workshops with the padres en español y en inglés, and we had so much fun, and I had health insurance. And I got me a car. I was so happy. And when I got hired, I was very fortunate that I had an awesome partner. And Amy Ressler is another incredible storyteller who taught me so much. And she and I would go out and tandem tells to our kids in the schools. And one day, we arrived at a school in Albany Park, and the teacher met us at the door. Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. My children love stories. They're excellent listeners. Well, all of them except for Elmer. You don't pay him any attention. You just keep on going. And we walked in the room, and there on the Crayola carpet were these beautiful eyes staring at us. And one back of the curly head, who seemed to have a pencil, and he was whittling a hole into the carpet. I figured that was Elmer. And we began, once upon a time there was a great Mama Sow. And she had 1, 2, 3 baby pigs. And they did not stay little, They grew and grew and grew. And they had to go off and find their own places to live. And I got the kids involved. I said, let's go walking and walking and walking down the road. Come on, walking and walking and walking down the road. Let's go walking and walking and walking down the road. I was trying to get Elmer in, but he was not interested in walking down the road. So we're building a stick house, and I think, what kid doesn't like a tool? A hammer, here's a hammer for you, and nails, come on. Use your imagination, you got hammers and nails, come on guys. Amy and I are going back in the story, and we cannot get this little boy to turn around and participate. And then we get further into the story, and I thought, And as the little pig built her beautiful house, someone came walking down the road. Tengo hambre. His head looked towards me, and I saw these big, beautiful almond eyes. Cochinito, cochinito, déjeme entrar! And he stood up, déjeme entrar! I said, come on guys, cochinito, cochinito, déjeme entrar! And I look at Amy, and she's got big eyes. And I'm like, not by the hair. Oh, not by the hair. I'm like, chinny chin chin. And we're going back and forth. Soplaré y tumbaré tu casita. And Elmer was such a leader. He showed everyone, vamos, al techo, al techo. He gets up on that roof of that house, and he's shimming down the chimney. And, pero aquí está caliente. I'm like, sí, había un fuego. There was a fire. He said, ah! He sale corriendo, and he jumps down that roof and is running out the door. And Elmer va corriendo. And he sits down in the river that we had just imagined a few moments earlier when the little pig decided where she was going to build her house. Ay, se me quemó las nalgas. And the teacher walked up to us and she said, oh my goodness, I've never seen Elmer so engaged. How did you do it? And in that moment, I am transported back to when I was a 5-year-old little girl, sitting in St. Benedict. Oh. And I was in St. Ben's, and my nun teachers, they were lovely. I was holding a big fat crayons, dibujando, coloreando. I like to color, but I was pushing extra hard because I thought I was in trouble. Mami and Papi were coming to talk to my maestra, y yo no sabía qué había hecho. Seguro que hice algo. And when Mami and Papi walked in, the teacher said, oh, Mr. Cardenas, Mrs. Cardenas, thank you so much for coming. Please have a seat. And my father looks at that chair that's meant for 4-year-olds, and he sat on the table. And he says, thank you. Everything okay? And she says, yes. We just love having Jasmin in our class, and Fabian, such wonderful children. There's just one thing. We're having a hard time with them, and we think that if you and Mrs. Cardenas, she looks at my mom who has a beautiful smile. She's beautiful. She doesn't understand a lick of what this lady's saying. But she's smiling. And she says, if you and Mrs. Cardenas could speak to the kids in English, then they would really grasp our English so much faster, and that would just really help us here. And my father got up, and I saw him start to shift in that way that tells me that I'm about to get into a lot of trouble. And my father says, sister, we Kaiser, my esposa and I, we are from Colombia, Cali, Colombia, and we speak Espanol, and you speak English, you teach English. How we speak to our children if we know speak English? You teach is English, and we have to speak Español en nuestra casa. I'm bilingual today because my dad stood up for my language. When I went back to that same school in Albany Park, the second time, I noticed that la maestra had written things like puerta, door, ventana, window, all over the classroom. And she said, oh, little Elmer sure is a leader. He is such an incredible helper in the classroom. And on that third visit, because we always went 3 times a school year, he came running towards me. Miss Jasmin, mire, 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 como mi familia. And he was holding a book about making tamales, just like his familia makes in Navidad. I told this story at one of the biggest storytelling festivals in Utah, I should say in the country, that's in Utah, called Timpanogos Storytelling Festival. And I was at a funders event where we each get to tell short stories. And afterwards, I was thanking all of these lovely people who make it possible for me to get to be a paid performer. And I was speaking to one man in particular, thanking him, and I noticed that was an older man right behind him, and he seemed to really want to get to where I was. And he seemed a little eager, but in an almost sinister way. And so as this, I thanked this man and I turned to say goodbye to him, I turn around and this little man is in my face. I'm one of those people that thinks, why do you come here if you don't want to speak English? And I know that he must have seen my face. And I physically stepped back away from him. And he calmed down and he said, your story made me do a lot of thinking, soul searching. Made me do a lot of soul searching. Thank you. He was at every one of my shows. He sat in the 3rd row back on the left side of me with his wife. And he came up to me and spoke to me after every show. I only tell personal tales about being bicultural, stuck between 2 worlds, ni de aquí ni de allá. And I tell stories from this hemisphere, de nuestra gente, de México, de los aztecas, de mayas, de los chichas. I tell stories from Colombia. I tell stories from Panama because I want our people to know how beautiful our culturas are. I'm tired of people spitting on Latino immigrants. Because if they only understood the bravery that it requires to trek multiple countries to come to this country to clean houses and cut your lawn. But they don't know the richness of our culturas. I know that señor shifted because he let me know after every opportunity that he appreciated something that I had to say, that he saw something in a different light than he'd ever considered before. And it's because our stories matter. Gracias. I just wanted to share with you that my show, Cuentos from the Americas, was selected by the Filet of Solo Festival here in Chicago. And so I have flyers with the date and the location of that show. That'll be on November 9th up at Rack City in Rogers Park. In fact, where I began my storytelling journey in Rogers Park after school programs. And I'd love to have an audience because I perform this show all over the country, but not often in Chicago. It's folk tales and personal stories from our people. Gracias.